500 Doors, your real estate podcast, speaking with industry experts in real estate buying, selling, planning, developing, wholesaling, investing, financing, management. If it's real estate, we're talking about it. I'm your host, Kim Hayden, an award-winning 6- and 7-figure real estate agent with over 2 decades of experience. Understanding real estate is a dream for many, that we, real estate professionals, have the ability to bring that dream to reality while building better communities and being the change we want to see. So today's guest, I'm pretty excited because basically everything she talked about is I'm on board. I'm on board with everything Anita's talking about. So Anita did not start out in real estate as a realtor, but as an investor, looking to see her hard-earned money work harder for her and to create a better road to financial freedom. She reseated real estate as an investment strategy. It it didn't take long as she jumped in with both feet. She recruited her husband Kris, worked hard to purchase 5 rental homes in their first year while also having their first child. She was hooked. Anita was hooked. While Anita has continued to grow and reposition her real estate holdings over the years, even winning the Canadian Real Estate Investor, and that's CREW award, for her work. Her successes here have given her the passion to help many others do the same. Anita left her successful career as a chiropractor to become a realtor. Real estate is Anita's passion, and it shows in the referrals and the reviews of her many clients. So we're going to bring her in. I love the fact that this is a fellow team duo. My husband and I were a team for, we still are. I mean, he's still around. So he's actually on the other side of the office wall right now working on a press release for me. So we are still a team. Once a team, always a team. So Anita, I'd love to dive in right from the beginning and give us a little bit of a scope as to who you are and where you are, because 5 rentals purchased in your market is a very different undertaking than 5 rentals purchased in like middle of Kansas. So I'd love for you to give us a little bit of scope as to who you are so we have a pre-frame around this.
Absolutely. So this sort of the bio you started off with gives a lot of it. We were people who made good income working here. Originally, we started in the west end of Toronto. Now we're in the Durham region. And we got a little frustrated that we worked so hard and earned what we felt was a significant amount, and it didn't go as far as it should have. So we looked into real estate as a means to have our money work for us. We're no strangers to hard work. We're not afraid to live in a house while we renovate it, or move our kids around a little bit if we need to. But essentially, who I am is somebody who's very motivated to see a specific future for myself and for my family and for stability. And that's what led us to state, and that's what's kept us in real estate. So since that time when we started out, we have 8 duplexes now in the Durham region. And from being an investor, it made me want to help other people to do the same thing. So I've since retired my husband from his job, and like you said, he's a team with me now. And we're helping other people do the same thing on any scale. It's not just buying an investment property on top of owning your primary residence. For some people, it's just simply purchasing a property that you will live in that will also serve as an investment property. So house hacking, things like that. Any way to improve your financial future through equity. That's really who we are and what we've been working with. But beyond that, I'm a mom of 2 little girls, and I'm active, and we love to travel.
And traveling is a whole lot easier when you have money working for you. That's for sure.
That's right.
Let's go into a little bit of how you discovered investing. So that will be one, how you discovered that. And the second half of that question would be around, what were the things you wish you had known?
Okay. So we discovered it the way most people do, I think, now. I mean, I can't imagine how people did it 20 years ago, but we started just shy of 10 years ago, and we discovered it listening to podcasts and reading. That was ultimately it. We wanted to find out how these financially free people, what were they doing differently from us? You know, we had a literal spreadsheet that told us what month and day and year we'd retire on the path we were currently on. And we just weren't happy with that. It just didn't seem fair to us. So we listened to podcasts. We ended up actually coming into the Durham region, into Whitby, to speak to somebody who we heard on a podcast, the Realtor, and that individual ended up being the Realtor for our first few purchases in the Durham region. And that's sort of what got us started in it. And like you said in your intro, it got us hooked because what it could create for our future was pretty fantastic. And to this day, we still listen to a ton of podcasts and read a ton, and we believe in coaching as well.
What was something that you wish you had known before you went into this journey of investments? Because so first thing we have to acknowledge out there, folks, you and your husband were professionals coming into this, so you had a
Yeah.
sizable revenue to start with,
We did.
and we're going to go into some of the hacks around investment if you don't have that revenue. If you are a single mom that has a good revenue, but you got 2 kids and no child support, which is a very common thing, we're going to
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that. I'm going to pick Anita's brain on this in a bit, but I would like to know what you wish you would have known before you purchased the first property.
Pretty fantastic.
Hold on one second, Anita. I'm getting a clicking here. I just want to
Yeah,
make
and I may need to remove my headphones if that's the problem. Let me know if it continues. But yeah, I would say that the biggest things that we learned are money spent at the outset versus being very frugal with our investment properties. So not repairing something quickly, or maybe taking a shortcut on a renovation. Those things cost you a lot more money later on. That was probably the biggest thing we learned, because we were very frugal at the start, which allowed us to do what we did along with our income. That and building a strong team, and because the people you spend your time with and the people who you create as your circle, they influence what you do, how hard you push, how much you can do. And that was a big factor for us as well. So I think we would have pursued that even more aggressively than we did.
What are some opportunities, strategies, funding that is out there, new things that have come in play that if somebody is looking at, going into investment or into real estate, purchasing their first property or something, what are some strategies they can implement if maybe they don't have all the resources financially?
And that's with what we
Hold on one second. You're cutting out again, so I'm not sure if that's your earbuds.
maybe.
All right.
Can you hear me now, Kim?
I can hear you. Yeah, I
Perfect.
do think it was the earbuds starting to
Yeah,
go.
yeah, sometimes. Yes, so I would say strategies, it's a lot harder to attain, not just even income alone. Obviously, we had good jobs, not good jobs, but jobs that allowed us to do a lot. But beyond that, prices have just gone up much faster than what incomes have gone up as well. So whatever market you're in, it's very different from when we started out. So I think people need to consider strategies like house hacking. So possibly living in an investment property, buying 2, 3, or 4 unit property where they live in a unit, and can take advantage of some more favorable financing to get into those properties. Sometimes you'll require less capital then to get into your property. Co-ownership's a big one. We're seeing a lot of the younger population where 2 friends, 2 couples, people like that will get into their first property together, or that co-ownership may be with family, or parents are helping quite a lot. If you've looked at recent stats in Canada, we're seeing, the majority of down payments are coming with help from family now. So these are things to look at as well, but also make sure you work with the right mortgage agent or broker so that you are getting the right products to make sure you qualify and you're being considered in the best way. Those are some of the strategies that we're really looking at. Partnering in any way can often be an advantage for a lot of people. So sometimes you're partnering with someone who has just a lot of experience, and you can be a silent money partner in some way. But other times, if you want to be more active, it's more of a joint venture or a co-venture.
So when we're talking about pricing, house hacking, co-ownership, the Canadian market is really expensive, and Toronto is one of the most expensive cities in the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, there's some new things happening in alternative housing that is also revenue options. So there's the new backyard suites. I'm calling them the backyardigans. You remember the backyardigans?
Yep.
Yeah.
My kids
That's
watched
it.
it. Yep.
I want to build these just so I can call them the backyardigans, right? Wouldn't that be
Yep.
hilarious? But let's talk about knowing the new legislation that's coming in, knowing that we're 500,000 affordable homes short in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And this is before we open up to another 500,000 new Canadians, right? So the
Yep.
reality is if we're truly projecting properly, we're a million shy of being able to house everybody who wants a roof over their head.
Yep.
However, the majority of people will make less than 70K a year,
Yep.
which does not put them in an alignment
Mm-hmm.
for purchasing. However, you just kind of the co-ownership and this new because Calgary's looking at approving all of it also. So
Oh,
rezoning of
great.
properties for the backyard suites. Walk me through that. If you were as a real estate agent, knowing with this coming out, what would you be looking for in a property that you could potentially multiply the revenue on that property?
That's a great question, because some of our municipalities where we are have already adopted that. So we have an
Awesome.
area, Clarington, near us, where you can add what's called 2 additional dwelling units. So you can take your primary residence, add a basement suite in it, and build a detached suite on the same lot, a tiny home, garden home, coach home, whatever you want to call that there. So we actually have a number of clients already doing this in the Clarington area. And we're talking about increasing your rent for the whole property. Say it's just 2 units on the property versus 3. We're likely increasing our rents by more than 50% by adding that garden suite on there. So, often 2,500 at least in that detached suite. But you're also creating a detached home, which is comfortable and nice living for a family, a couple, whoever it is, friends that are looking to rent. You're creating safe, clean, and more affordable housing that way in these tiny homes or garden homes, as we call them. So we have, in the majority of our municipalities here in the Durham region, they're very agreeable to it. Now, the Bill 23 that came out allowing this for us, the enforcement of that still has yet to roll out. We don't know all the ins and outs of everything, but Clarington in our area already has figured all of that out. It's very straightforward. So for us, the difference is zoning no longer applies. Every house is allowed to be 3 units as of right. Now, the catch is meeting the parking requirements, because
I was going to ask that
yes,
parking. What?
yes,
Because people parking and poop are the 3 P's of pain for any alderman or any
yes,
legislative person.
yes,
Parking.
yes. Parking is the thing that will hinder us the most in creating multiple units on a property, because one, you just need 1 parking spot per unit based on Bill 23 when it came in. So that's 3 parking spots potentially. But not only that, you want a good tenant profile and a good experience for your tenants. So you don't want 3 parking spots in tandem. So your tenants are going to jockey cars to get in and out of their driveway. You want to find a way to make it reasonable so
And
that you would, yep.
that would
Sorry.
be a 30 wide lot. If you put a triple on the back, or you put in a triple carport or anything like that. Or does that also take in what street front?
So ultimately, it depends on the municipality that you're in. So you can do a double wide driveway if you have a 30-foot frontage. In Clarington, you actually probably only need about a 21-foot frontage. You could probably almost get 3 wide with the 30-foot frontage. But you go to an area right next to Clarington is Oshawa, and you need, goodness, we would need 27 feet of parking, and then another 27 feet of green space. So we're looking at 54-foot frontage in Oshawa if you were to do a triple wide drive there, which is not very obtainable in most lots, most
Yeah.
properties. It really limits who can do it. Corner lots will often help you out where you can create a separate driveway. So we certainly look for those. So we're looking for a property that's got, I'd like to see a minimum 40-foot frontage and 150-foot depth. That'd be what I'd love to see. If it's a corner lot, that makes it even a little bit better. And that's not just by meeting your parking requirement. That's also for tenant experience, right? And getting it, the tenants in a position that's comfortable for them too.
I I started and worked for over 14 years in a community in Calgary, that had granny suites. So the suite above the garage. So R2 zoning. So I've been very familiar with this and the desirability of having those 4 walls. And these units were only 450 square feet, but they were beautifully designed. They were 450 to 580 was the average granny suite. I think we were capped at 580 legally. Um, are any of these places looking at going up on the suites? So do they have rear alleys or does that come into play? Because I absolutely agree. Corner lots, and it's funny because here in Calgary, everybody looks at a corner lot. If it has sidewalk, they're going, I don't want it
Yeah.
because they have to shovel it by law. But now all of a sudden that corner lot is just like a gold mine.
Exactly. So here we don't have a lot of laneway suites. We just don't have a lot of laneways in Durham region. If you're just a bit north of us in Peterborough, certainly a lot more. It's another area that we service a lot. And we've gone to more outer areas like Peterborough because of price points, right?
Yeah.
If it's all of a sudden $100,000, $150,000 less, it's more affordable for somebody to get into those markets. So Peterborough will have some laneway suite options as well, but probably not to the extent that some other areas have. In Durham, we don't have a ton for the laneway suite options, so it will be corner lots or deep lots where you can create a parking pad in between the primary structure at the front and the secondary structure at the back. That's more what we're probably looking at. And there's other things you have to think about, like drainage and things like that, when you start adding in big parking pads and things as well. But the municipality seems to think they're going to be pretty agreeable to them, and we've had some pretty good success. We've got a client doing 5 of them in Clarington right now, and it is going well. And they are doing units that are full basements as well, so 650 square foot home with a full basement. So you have 1,300 square feet of living space in a detached unit. So for that person renting there or living there, it's a full home with their own, their own furnace and everything. So that's something I think that people want versus living in a multi-unit home sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was interesting because the suites above the garage, the carriage homes, granny suites, whatever you wanted to call them, in Town, always went for a premium, almost like 30% higher price per square foot
Mhm.
than an apartment building.
Yeah.
And it's because they had their own front door, they had their own washer and dryer. It was literally a self-contained little tiny home, right?
Mhm.
Um, Parking solutions, real quick. Do a lot of the homes have, because when I lived in Toronto, so I was in Lakeshore Drive,
Okay.
and we had a shared lane between the 2 houses. The houses were
Mhm.
built in like 1929 cottage area.
Yeah.
And so there was a shared lane. Is that an option to get some of these cars off the streets?
So the shared lane is an option for access to parking areas, which would be what you would have had in Toronto. So it's definitely an option, but to create that in an area where it's not already present is difficult, right? If the house
Yeah.
next to you, if you want to, increase the space of your yard by having a right of way or an easement shared access, your neighbor doesn't want that. Your neighbor doesn't want to share that. If you happen to own 2 adjoining properties, that can happen. We have clients right now who own 2 semis, the 2 attached semis, but the second lot is an extremely wide lot. So what they're doing is each semi is going to be 2 units with a garden suite in the back as well. So these 2 units have now become 6 units, but they're also severing off one side of that larger lot and doing a shared driveway access so that that severed lot has access and the other side of the semi has access. So just like you're saying, so that they can actually build a triplex on the lot that they'll sever off, essentially taking 2 semi-detached units, so 2 units, and creating 9 at the end of the day, and creating good and large housing for people who will be renting in the future as well. But they'll do that by creating that joint driveway. But it is hard to do if you're going to need, permission of a neighbor or shared access.
Yeah.
The neighbor,
Yeah.
most people, they just don't want that, right? And it's the same thing with the price premium for these nanny suites or above the garage suites. It's because people don't want to interact with their neighbors unless they have to. They want it to be of their own accord, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just going to put this out to anybody who is doing these investments. Do really consider the parking issues. And this is not just an aesthetic or can I find a place to put my car. This is literally issues with getting first responder vehicles through neighborhoods when there is no room to move on the streets.
Yeah.
The community I the community that I worked in and farmed for, like I said, for 15 years, they actually wanted to go like an extra like 4 inches tighter on the streets. It was designed to be an English borough, and the city came back and said that you have to actually design custom first response vehicles because nothing we have will fit through the streets if people are parked on both sides. And I had actually seen firsthand in one of the neighbor in one that's why they have the push bars on the front of fire trucks, right? And I've actually seen firsthand a fire truck having to push a vehicle out of the way. So that is something definitely that will come into play because that is a constant issue we have had in certain areas in McKenzie Town that were a little more congested due to the multiple suites. But man, it's so nice to be able to provide a space in a nice neighborhood, right?
Hmm.
That people feel safe walking around and that the local group, because I mean, now you talk about 2 properties turning into 9. What you've done is you've also amplified 9 people are now shopping at the local grocery store.
That's
9
right.
people are shopping at anybody who has any kind of commerce store or coffee shop or anything. It literally shifts the, um, the growth opportunity
Yeah.
for local economy. And I think that that's the one thing that we have to really look at. So, yeah, the parking is gonna be interesting, and I think part of it is because we've made our areas so compact, all of our new builds so compact over the
Yeah.
last 20 years in Canada, and I sit here and going, we have lots of land, right? That's the American in me going, "There's more land. We can give me 6 more inches." But, I mean, we've gone down this and now we're trying to go, "Okay, how further can we use our land?" Let's talk about real quick before we move into community, as you talk a lot about community, what is one key thing that if somebody's going to go into a co-ownership space, I know that there needs to be some sort of, like, prenup. I mean
Exactly.
so,
Exactly.
walk me through that conversation as a real estate agent helping somebody on this journey who wants to get into their first. What are some ways that you can handle sensitive topics?
It's always a topic we have to have with everyone, and ultimately their legal counsel will draft up what needs to be drafted up. But at the end of the day, I always explain to people that if you're going into something that's co-ownership, especially if it's with family, you need things to be as cut and dry and black and white as they can be, because it's never going to be perfectly cut and dry and black and white. But things happen. And the times we run into trouble are when things like bad things happen or very unexpected things happen. And
Yeah.
it's something no one wants to happen or no one could have predicted. But these are the times when things get really rough. And that is the biggest reason we have to have these, as you said, prenups there, because at the end of the day, there can be no confusion as to how the scenario needs to be handled. It needs to be sort of laid out, letter of the law. If someone is in financial trouble and they need to exit the investment, it needs to be handled a certain way. There may be option A, B, and C, but it needs to be very clear how things are handled. If someone were to pass away, if someone, any scenarios, we need to understand, if they have a spouse, what is disposal rights versus what's going to happen? Is there a buyout opportunity for the other co-owner? Does it go to market automatically? How many If there's a buyout, how many opinions of value are you going to get, or does it need to be an official appraisal? There's a lot of factors, but you really need to lay out, we know how it's going to go if it goes well. And it's easy to lay out those factors that this is how it goes. But if it's a co-ownership and you're both going to live in it, what happens if one person just says, well, at this point, I want to take some equity out. I want to refinance to buy a home and I don't want to live in a co-ownership situation. We need to know how that's going to be handled, because it can't be personal. It does need to be a business transaction in that sense, because it can't destroy your relationship. And it is even, people downplay it when it's family or friends. It's even more important.
Oh,
it's even more important. You can't destroy a friendship, and we've seen it happen with people, not necessarily something we've done, but we've heard and seen other people run into terrible situations because money can destroy things. I'm sure you've seen it too when, a parent's home is being sold for an estate and you have the kids
oh
as
yeah.
the trustees. It's unfortunate, but it gets very nasty sometimes. So the more clear, the more black and white and cut and dry things are, it's just better for everybody. Because if you're the person who's fallen on the hard times, or if you're the person who's on the other side of things, you know what to expect, you know what's going to happen. It's never ideal. And you go into it knowing that that's what you agreed to at the start. And it's too important not to consider. And I've seen some terrible joint venture agreements in the past. So I think you need to be extremely, extremely thorough. I don't imagine you can be too thorough.
It's kind of like being a scout. Always be prepared, folks. And if all else fails, know your knots. No, just joking. We don't want to tie anybody up. I'm just joking. So walk me through what does community mean to you?
Honestly, community is sort of the idea of it takes a village to raise a child. That old adage is, community is all the people, whether they're your acquaintances, your close friends, your family, your colleagues, that influence the direction that you take, the situations you find yourself in. They're the people who, your community may be somebody who you see something happen, you say, well, that's not going to be me, but it'll be the converse as well. And you see that, and that is exactly what I want to be. The community is everything around you, but your community, we all have our own personal community as well. And to me, my personal community is the people that lift me up, the people who make me better, better than I was the day before. So whether it's a better mom or a better runner or a better realtor or a better friend, that's my truest community, my personal community, versus the broader community, which is all of the outside influences and people that are pushing us in different directions. And we're choosing which way to go based on our experiences with that outer community, but we're choosing that inner community to help push us and lift us up to where we want to be.
And I could not agree with you more. I could not agree with you more.
Mm-hmm.
What are you reading right now? What do you think everybody should read or listen to, or a podcast? What is it that's inspiring you?
So I just finished Extreme Ownership. I really enjoyed that. Just the idea, with me, I run a real estate team. So the idea that, if things don't go well, sure, I could say this person or that person didn't do their part. But at the end of the day, did I communicate well? Were the expectations there? Was there full understanding of what's going on? And taking ultimate ownership of what's happening within my own teams and my own environment. That's been a big one for me, just for the mindset there. I'm type A personality, so I do like to micromanage a little bit, but I have to find a balance with that. And I liked that book a lot for that reason. But second to that, or maybe even before that, who not how was a big one for me. If you want to get to the next stage, the next level, people always say, how do I get there? The idea of who do I need to align myself with or hire or bring into my community in order to get to that next level. Because the reality is we can spread ourselves very thin. I run this business. I have 2 young kids. It can keep me very, very busy. So the reality of thinking that I can just add more to my plate, it's not a reality, and you're not doing quality work anymore. So adding more who's to get to that end goal, I think it was a really great book, and it really opened my eyes a lot as well.
Who wrote that, out of curiosity?
I'd have to look it up for you, Kim. I can send it off to you.
Yeah, we'll definitely look that up because I am an absolute believer in conversations to conversions. You can
Yeah.
sit here and you can run as many ads as you want. You can pay Zillow as much money as you want. You can do all of that. And you know what? There's a lot of big teams that do that because that's one slice of the sphere. It's not your entire business.
Yeah.
And it's who are you having conversations with? Because
Hmm.
all the numbers are there.
Hmm.
The numbers are there. Conversations lead to conversion if
Yeah.
you're having the right number with the right people. And again, it's who, not how or what or any of those things. It's just who are you talking to, right?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
that
It's
sphere,
relationship.
understanding your spheres, building those relationships. Absolutely. Where can people find you?
So you can find me personally, so Anita Bongers Lewis, or our group Doors to Wealth, either on Facebook or Instagram. We're on both.
And I love that doors to wealth. Um, 500 doors is because there was literally just shy of 500 doors in the new community that I started farming in 1999. And off of 500 doors, I literally grew a 7-figure brand. So behind every door is an opportunity and a human that you can serve. So I love that doors to wealth because yes, it's a door, but there's a human attached to every door. So, and that's the
Absolutely.
community.
And it's individualized, right? One investor might own 10 properties, but the next person may be a family we helped last year where 3 generations of a family never owned a home. But by collaborating and joining their incomes and finding the right property that had space for all of them, that had units the right size, we got them all into their first ever home for all 3 families. And that will change their financial future. We know that it'll change their future. And that's why it's doors to wealth.
You just gave me goosebumps. That is such an amazing, powerful story because that's the ripples, folks. That's where we as real estate professionals deemed a necessary or essential service globally. Um, we can actually change the course. We can change the course for other people. We can help others build their legacy. Um, I'd love for you to close us out today, but before we close out on a quote, is that a shoe behind you? I'm trying to figure out what is behind you, the white thing behind you. What is that?
I'm not sure what you're referring to there.
Oh, it's a coat hanging up. It
Oh, yeah, the
has,
gold? It's just a coat.
yes,
Yes.
it's a coat. So
Yep.
it looked like a giant runner because the pattern on the one side, I'm looking at it the entire time going, "What is that?" Okay, folks, it's a
No,
coat. It's a coat.
it's a coat.
It's I thought maybe because you said you were a runner, and I'm going, "Oh, well,
I
maybe she
am.
has this giant runner behind her."
There you
Only
go.
I would have crazy stuff like that. Needless to say, all the, Wizard of Oz stuff behind me. Um, Close us out on a quote today. Give us a quote that inspires you that people can borrow when they need inspiration.
So this quote is why I started investing in real estate, and it's the best way to predict the future is to create it. So do today what you know is going to bring you closer to your end goal and your why. So that's what means the most to me.
That is awesome. What a great conversation. I just want to say to everybody, pay attention. There are so many things going on out there. We have condo convert or commercial conversions starting to happen across the North America where we're, creating residential opportunity out of, empty commercial space. We have the backyardigans happening, and it's not a Nickelodeon cartoon. There's so many things out there. And if you're in real estate, you know, kind of your job to know what we can offer and how we can serve. And if you're looking in real estate, be sure to align with an industry expert, somebody who knows the area and knows the opportunity because it goes a lot further that way. I promise you, it's always better when you're working with an expert. So, I just want to thank you again for joining us here at the 500 Doors Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Kim Hayden. And you know what? I look forward to seeing everybody being able to put up a happy home sign, be able to plant their trees, plant their flags, get out there and own your space. Thank you for joining us at the 500 Doors Your Real Estate Podcast. Be sure to join our Facebook group at Real Estate Success with 500 Doors. Keep on watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share, because we all know sharing is caring.